Hey ADF fans, let's have a little bit of fun with Snowflake and ADF's Data Flows. Now Data Flows in Data Factory are where you go to build your visual data transformation graphs, then execute those at scale. In this case, we're going to load our destination of a Snowflake database table. Alright, so let's get started. The first thing we want to do is we want to load a brand new table in Snowflake with the data that I always use for my demos, which is my movies CSV data with some movie titles, genre year, and some ratings. So let's get started with that. So I have a single mapping data flow activity on my pipeline. And let's double click on it, and that is going to first be my loading Snowflake movies. So there's my movies data that I always work with. This is nothing different. The source is a CSV text delimited data set, which is just going to have contain about 9,000 or 9,100, 9,200 rows of movies and the ratings. And then I have a sync, so the simplest form of data flow you can have. There's no transformation really going on here at all. We're just going to land all the fields as they are, so we have auto mapping set for the column mapping. And let's take a look at the sync. This is where we're going to point to a data set type. So you have your options of either choosing a shared data set, which is shared across your data factory over here in the Factory Resources Explorer, or you can use what's called an inline data set to define your Snowflake connection directly here inside of your source and sync. But I want to share this, so I'm going to use the shared data set type. If I open that up, you'll see it's very simple. It's just pointing to a brand new table. So public, I clicked the edit button and typed in public.new movie. So we'll create a brand new table, and that points to my linked service, Snowflake 1. That has my credentials and the warehouse and the database. So all you do is go back then here, and for the settings we have it set to insert, and I have recreate table. So I've run this demo several times, so I want to make sure that we remove the previous table definition and build a brand new table from scratch, and that's what Data Factory will do for you here. That's it. Let's go back to the pipeline now, and let's run this guy. So if you click debug, that will run entire data flow, the entire pipeline actually, in this case, which is just a data flow. And it will take the source and the sync, and it will read the data, and it will land the data using the connectors that you've chosen for your source and sync types. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's let that run, let that cook for a little bit. And while it's doing that, I'll go over to my worksheet in Snowflake and take a look at the data. So here is that data sitting in my Snowflake table, my brand new table called New Movies that was loaded from Data Factory. So let's do a couple of real quick and easy things here just to demonstrate some of the things that you can do within Data Factory and Snowflake. So I see that I have some names of movies that have some parentheses in it. There's some additional name that goes along with the title, or there was maybe previously had some year associated with it, and it just seems like it's cut off. It doesn't look good. So I'm going to clean these up. I'm going to remove anything after the parenthesis on there. So let's do that first. So back on my Data Factory, what I will do is I will change this activity now from the load to the update Snowflake. So update Snow. And let me show you this data flow by double clicking on it. Now in this case, my source, I'm going to show you how to use a source that is not a shared data set. This is an inline data set. You'll see it's pretty much exactly the same, except that the definition is defined here directly in my source transformation. I'm using the same link service that points to that same database. In the source options now, I can either type in a query, or I can point to a table. We'll go and grab the metadata, so you have all of the schemas and all the tables associated with that schema. I'm going to use that public new movies that I just created. Here's the projection. I can import the schema to bring the projection in, which I already did. And you see that I had the data types inferred from the CSV file that I loaded into my database table. Great, so let's go ahead and let's do the a couple of things with it. There's actually one other thing I want to do besides cleaning up that column, the title column. I also want to remove any movie that was previous to 1980. I just want to take out the older movies. Let's just bring in movies that are more in the modern era from 1980 and beyond. So I set two different policies in my alter row. Alter row is where you set your policies to update, delete, or insert and upsert against your data in your target database. My target is my Snowflake database, and I have two policies: delete if the year is less than 1980, and update if the left paren is in the string of the title. Okay, so if the index returns something greater than 0, that means it was found. So what I can do next is I can say clean the name, and what that's going to do is it's going to say take the title, which is the name of the movie, and give me the left up to the point where the in string found, or the index found for that left parenthesis in title. and then subtract 2 because I want to go back before the space before it actually has the left parenthesis, so we'll just have a nice clean title then after that. Now, of course, this is going to fail or give you null as a returned string or return value for any title that does not have a left parenthesis in it, but that's okay because my policies for my alt row is saying only update if it does have a parenthesis in it. So you'll see that in the data preview. When you go there, you will see the tagging of the different rows. All the X's will be deleted, and that's because they're before 1980. All the pluses will be inserted, but I'm going to say don't insert in the sync. And then the stars are updates. And that's great because that has the left parenthesis in it. That's what I wanted. So now in the sync, I can say do not insert, so we don't get any duplicates. Delete the ones I've set a policy for, and update. What is my key? My key is movie. That is my primary key. And don't recreate the table this time because I already have a table defined. Mapping is just going to be auto map by defaults. And that's it. Let's let it rip and see what happens. We'll go back to the pipeline and debug. Give this about half a minute to execute. And then we'll go and take a look at our data over back in the Snowflake worksheet. Alright, so refresh, and there it is. So we have none of the left parentheses. The title looks a lot cleaner now, and we've removed any movie prior to 1980. So pretty simple to update your databases and run regular maintenance and ETL scripts from Data Factory against your Snowflake database. Okay, let's do one more thing. Let's take a look a little bit at an analytics scenario. So in that case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a brand new data flow. Let's create this one on the fly. All right, so I'm going to say from the data flow here, I'm going to say new for that activity, and we'll just go ahead and pick the existing data set that we have for Snowflake that we created earlier. The projection is not there because I created a new table, but that's okay because I can just click import projection and Data Factory will go out and discover the columns and the metadata for you. All right, that's great. Now, one of the neat things that you can do with Snowflake and with Data Factory is I can work with arrays. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to call this derived column as, actually let me get my data flow name too. Let's call this Snowflake Analytics. Not really analytics, but it's just kind of demonstrating some features for you. So I'm going to call this create array. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take that that genre field that I have, which is actually a multi-valued string field that's separated by delimited by a pipe. All right, so let's go ahead and let's create a brand new column, and we'll call it genres array. And I'm going to take that genres column, and I'm going to say split that genres on pipe. There we go. That's going to create an array for me. So if I go now into my inspect to look at the metadata, you'll see that I've just created a genres array, string array. With Snowflake, that's fine. That'll just create a brand new column called genres array that has a string array. Data, what that's going to look like. And then while it's doing that, let me go ahead and actually add a sync on the end here. And for the sync, I'm just going to land that right back into that same table. So we'll say snow. There we go. Now this is going to have a new column, which is of course called, just be over here at the right, genre array, and it's going to look like this. Let's pick one right down here. There we go. So Adventure, Comedy, Musical was then separated into 3 different array indexes, array elements. And so what I'll do is I'm going to say in this case, go ahead and recreate table. I'll insert recreate table. So we'll have that new column added to it. And that should be good. Let's go ahead and run this. This is already set here, is it? It is Snowflake Analytics. Very good. Let me do a quick save on everything. And then I'll go ahead and debug. All right, there we go. That's running. And so let's go back over to Snowflake. And now when we're back on the new movies table, we see that we've created that genre array just like we had in Data Factory. Okay, let's do one more real quick thing. I'm not going to actually land this data. We'll just look at it here inside of the data flow, a little bit more analytics. So we were doing so we were here creating an array. What we could also do is we could do all the other sort of typical things that you would do when you're working with big data within Data Factory and data flows. So let's say we had now we only have records in movies that are from 1980 and greater. So let's go ahead and see what the average rating is for all of those movies from the more modern era. And we'll get those. Just go ahead and look at this in place from data preview. Data preview when you're in Data Factory data flow is just a look at the data as it sits in the data frame in Spark. You see that 5.488 is the average rating for movies 1980 and greater, all from Snowflake. And that's it. So thanks for watching.